Hello everyone, Clark the Geek here, and welcome back to the Inside No.9 Retrospective Look Backs. Today, we're covering my favourite series of the show, Series 3. Now, I have said before that Series 3 is my favourite of the show, and I think it is a lot of people's favourite as well. But for good reason, because the highs that this series reaches is just incredible. Like, it tends to be number 9. There's usually in every series like 1 or 2 weaker episodes, not bad, but just kind of, they're just decent and nothing else, really. So like Series 1 had like Last Gasp and, in my opinion, Sardines. Series 2 has Nana's Party, and obviously we'll get to the future seasons in a bit in the next videos. But Series 3, the lowest that this series gets is like a great like 8 out of 10. That's the lowest that this series gets. And the fact that over the course of the 6 episodes, it's consistently great to stellar. Like, some of the best number 9 can be found in this series. It's just fantastic. Whether it's the consistent episodes, whether it's the really dark turns that this series takes, whether it's the gorgeous visual style of this series in particular, whether it's the really experimental nature of certain stories, just this series is one of the best runs of television I think we've ever had. And I'm going to obviously review all the episodes today. A few things. 1, spoilers ahead. That's kind of giving me number 9. 2, all my opinion, as you know. I'll be very positive here, so not really a lot of complaining, so that'll be good. And 3, the Devil of Christmas is in this series, but I won't be talking about it a lot here. So if you want to know my thoughts on that, go and watch my full 15-minute review of it. So you'll get the full thoughts there. But yeah, let's go. Let's just quickly go over the Devil of Christmas. I've already done a 14-minute video if you want my full thoughts. But overall, brilliant episode, one of my favourites of the show. Amazing attention to detail with the 70s cameras and props. Brilliant presentation with that. Phenomenal twist at the end. Really horrifying. A great one to show newcomers to the show. Just a brilliant episode, 10 out of 10. Let's move on. Okay, starting this review properly now with episode 2, The Bill. A quite popular episode, I think you'll find. And it's not one that I love as much as most people, and I think I should love it more. There is something that's kind of holding it back for me, but it is still a bloody strong episode. So the premise of this episode is that it's set in a restaurant, and it's about 4 friends at a meal, and it's at the end of the meal where they're deciding who's going to pay the bill, and it gets into a sort of heated argument over a simple question that, you know, often that dilemma of who is going to pay the bill. You know, I think everybody has been in that kind of situation before. I certainly have. And it can lead to some quite funny, quite intense of, no, I'll pay the bill, no, I'll pay the bill. And it can get, quite silly and intense, and it's very good. And this very much takes that idea to the extreme, and I really love that premise. This premise is very much bolstered by the chemistry of the 4 main actors in the cast. So you've got, playing all the 4 friends, you've got Pemberton, Shearsmith, and they've got guest stars Jason Watkins playing Kevin. And Jason Watkins is just one of those actors that I love him no matter what he's in. He's just such a charismatic, presence in anything. I just love him all the time that he's in. And then also Philip Glenister, who plays Craig, who's the upper class member of the party from down south. And there is that kind of, like the kind of jokes made about, oh, you Northerners, you're dead poor, because all the other 3 are from the north. I would highly recommend, if you have it, reading the script for this episode in the Series 1 to 3 number 9 script book, because the dialogue is incredibly snappy, and, everyone bounces off each other. It's very quick, fast-paced reading. And when you have a very great script like that with very snappy dialogue mixed with actors who have great chemistry, you've got a match made in heaven there. And it just, their chemistry and their one-liners and their dialogue, it all just bounces off each other so well, and their interactions, it's just such a joy to watch. I also think visually this episode is a great one. It's got great set design of the restaurant. It does remind me of restaurants that I've been to before. So there is a sort of a kind of cozy feeling watching the episode. There is a really great, kind of feeling, because I'm familiar with these kind of things, and it's done really well, the set design and whatnot, and it's visually very unique and distinct. Anyway, going back to the 4 main actors and the premise of who's going to pay the bill, the stakes of it and the intensity really increases. Like, example, Reese's character lies about he has a tumour, so he wants to pay the bill because it's the last time they meet. Turns out he was lying just to get it over with, and then it gets to really intense from there. And then they decide with a game of the knife where you stick the knife between your fingers, and it's like that kind of thing. And that scene was really, really intense. It's just one that's so anxiety-inducing, so how fast-paced it is, and how you've got Jason Watkins' character constantly counting how many times it just builds and builds and builds, and it's just really shocking. It gets so intense to the point where they end up killing the waitress that's there with the knife. Or so they think, because Craig ends up stepping on her hand, she makes a whimpering noise, turns out she's alive, and it's all been a con to scam Craig, because he's the rich one of the lot. And for years, I never really understood this episode. I always liked it, but I never really got what the twist was. But yeah, now I realise that it was basically a con to scam him, but it's ended up busted, so what do? It's quite a multi-layered kind of twist, and there is that kind of theme, that underlying theme throughout the episode of class dividers, specifically like north and south of England, because obviously Craig is from the south, the others are from the north. There's a lot of jokes in the dialogue referring to that kind of, oh, how poor northerners are, that kind of thing. And especially with Jason Watkins' character of Kevin, he's trying to split the money evenly, and he doesn't want to be pressured into paying more because, he's not as wealthy. So there is that subtext there throughout, and I think that's an interesting theme and, quite a cool, quirky twist. They kind of spoil it for me at the end, though. You see, after the twist is revealed, it cuts to black, the episode, and then it gets to one final scene where there's a new character who they're trying to scam, and Craig now works at the restaurant. And I had to kind of look on YouTube as to what the twist was actually about, this ending scene. Essentially, Craig now works there, and they're trying to scam other people to try and pay back money for all the stuff that they cause of this con. It's a twist that, in execution and in concept, really confused me, even on this rewatch. And even if it made sense, the way it was conveyed, it didn't really make sense to me. And even if it was conveyed better, I still kind of think that it's an unneeded twist. The twist of it was a con and it went bust, I think that was fine, Cut the episode. Don't have that extra scene, it just feels unnecessary. So, overall, I will give this an 8.5 out of 10. It's a solid one, but that ending did kind of slightly ruin it, but overall, love it though. Episode 3, Riddle of the Sphinx. One of the iconic episodes of the show, like A Quiet Night In, like 12 Days of Christine. It's one of those that it's universally well renowned, and for me, it is totally worthy of that reputation. So this one is set in a university professor's study, and it focuses on a girl, Nina, who wants to impress her boyfriend at these cryptic crosswords that Professor Squires, played by Pemberton, creates, at the university, and she wants to figure out how you do it and wants to find out the next issue of it. And this whole cryptic crossword thing, the whole idea of it, it's a fascination of Pemberton's in real life, but it is fascinating. It's so interesting, and I always love a good kind of word puzzle, like Scrabble. Me and my family tend to, so I just find it really interesting, and I want to learn more after this episode. But if I am ever going to rewatch it, I'll probably watch it for the educational kind of learning about cryptic crosswords at the start, and then probably click off afterwards, because it does get very dark, this episode. I mean, very dark. Probably the darkest the show ever gets. But it's still really fascinating to understand how the cryptic crosswords work and how the clues and how you pick them apart. It's really interesting, and it's really wanting to make me go and try and learn properly how you do. And it probably will take more rewatches to understand how this episode does it, but still, it's just really fascinating and really, holds my interest, and it just really intrigues me, and that's a testament to it. But even in this opening act, we get twists and turns already. So it turns out Nina isn't there to impress her boyfriend. She just actually, wants to learn about it, and she thought that saying that would not be legitimate, so she came up with the cover story of it being her boyfriend. And Squires has picked up on this because he's asking deliberately fake questions to trip her up on this. Later then, shortly after, it turns out Nina is actually a marine biology student, and he's there to get revenge on Squire by poisoning him because her brother used to be the cryptic crossword champion, but Squires cheated him out of that, and he ended up killing himself. She's out for revenge, and she's planning on poisoning him with pufferfish poison in a cup of tea. Then it's revealed that Squires has swapped the cups, so Nina is the one who's drunk the poison cup and is now going to be paralysed. And from there it just goes on and on with the twists, and it's just mind-blowing how they do it, but every bit of it just counts. Okay, I know that got very rambly by the end, but because this episode is really complex, but it's probably the most complex but cleverest episode of the entire show. It's just so intricately woven, phenomenally written, and not a minute this episode is wasted. There's no filler, no padding. You are gripped from start to finish. You need to be paying attention. So it's not one that you could watch on any old day, but it's just, when you are focused, you can't move your eyes from the screen. And it almost birthed a new sort of episode for number 9, as I think if you look at every series since Series 3, there has been an episode where it's revealing information every seemingly 5 minutes or so, and you get twists and turns throughout the episode, but none of them, I don't think, ever did it as good as Riddle the Sphinx did. Then we're introduced to Reese's character, Dr. Jacob Tyler, who is one of the most, or possibly even the most, despicable, evil character in this entire show. And that's what this episode does, especially in its second half, It really is tapping into the darkest impulses and the darkest actions of humanity, and it kind of taps into the idea of cannibalism, and it links to the whole Sphinx story, and the whole actions of the characters parallel that myth of the Sphinx, that kind of thing. Like, Squires is nicknamed the Sphinx, and the Sphinx, obviously, the myth of the riddle of the Sphinx. It was the bird that would kill and eat their victims if they couldn't answer the riddle, and that's really cleverly reflected in this episode. And the whole thing of how mega focused you have to be, trying to spot all the little details and how intricate the plot is, it's reflected in the whole crossword thing of how you need to focus when working out a crossword puzzle. It's just so multi-layered in that regard. As for the whole cannibal stuff and the really horrible stuff that's presented in the episode, I get for some it might be a bit OTT, but for me, this is the darkest episode of the show, and these are the darkest, most despicable characters ever. Horrible actions that they're committing. Like Squires ends up hitting on Nina, who who ends up being his daughter, which is just, oh man, it makes it really horrible on future watches. And then Jacob, he cuts a bit of Nina's flesh off, fries it, and forces Squire to eat it, because they've got a revenge, they've got rivalries as well. And it gets very dark, it's very graphic, and it's very overt as well. Like, there's other episodes of number 9 that present really dark ideas, like Wise Owl, for instance. But nothing in that episode is not much at least, is explicitly shown. Here it is, when he cuts the skin off and it fries in the pan, and when Squires eats it and he's gagging and tears in his eyes, it's just, oh man, it's horrible, but it works, and it's not there for the sake of it, it's there to really make it impactful, because you don't rarely ever see this in number 9, but here it's all the more impactful, and that's why I'm going to give it a 10. And that's only scratching the surface of this episode. I forgot to mention the brilliant set design and gloomy atmosphere of Riddle the Sphinx. Anyway, let's move on. And I'm glad that we have MC Orchestra now, our 4th episode, as a sort of palate cleanser, bit of a lighter episode, because trying to describe Riddle the Sphinx's plot was just, I need paracetamol after that. In fact, they mentioned paracetamol in this episode. Anyway, I'm distracting myself. MC Orchestra is one of the simplest slice of life episodes in the show. It's a very light-hearted episode, and there's no big gut-wrenching twist at the end. And I'm totally fine with that. And it is also one of the less popular episodes of the show, but it's really simple. It's just about an office party in a karaoke booth where they're celebrating Roger, played by Pemberton, who's having a promotion at work. It's as simple as that. I adore it. It's one of my comfort episodes, and it's one of my favourites for the very simple but key reason. I love karaoke. I love singing. I love the performing. It's a lot of 80s tracks in this episode, so I love 80s pop music. So naturally, I am going to gravitate towards this episode. One of the big reasons that I say that people don't like this one is the fact that there's no twist at the end, which I don't really like that criticism. And even Reese, I remember on one of the commentary tracks for this episode, he said, it's not always about the twist. And he's right, number 9, it commonly has twists, but that's not what it's built upon. It's built upon clever storytelling and clever writing and brilliant characters and all that kind of stuff. And that's what this episode definitely has. It's got clever storytelling and unique storytelling. It's the closest that number 9 would ever get to a musical episode, but it's justified why they're all singing. They're in a karaoke booth, so and it doesn't matter that the actors aren't professional singers either. It is just them having fun. It's a slice of life kind of affair. But it is still great storytelling, because the songs are all specifically chosen and they all represent the story and they all reflect the plot and the story beats. So, for instance, the first song that's sung is Don't You Want Me by the Human League, which is a class song. It's sung by Reese's character Greg and Connie, and it's their duet. And through this song and through the actions of the characters, we have learned that they are having an affair and Greg is cheating on his wife Fran. And it's all through the actions and the song, and there isn't really much dialogue. It is purely through the lyrics of the song that we are told this information, and it's just really clever, and all the other songs have that same effect. Whether it is quite a simple message, like the song Saturday Night, that one, that one is purely it's let's have fun, it's a party. That's the main message you get from that one. But then there's also Steve's character Roger belting out Since You've Been Gone by Rainbow, which is a class song, at the point where it's revealed that he's having a divorce. Or, Janet singing Only You, essentially confessing her feelings of, love towards Dwayne, who she has a crush on. Or at the end with Titanium, a very recent song from the 2010s, compared to all the 70s and 80s songs. And that song is kind of the end of the episode, the climax, where all the characters are moving forward, just like how the music that they chose is moving forward. All the characters are moving on with their lives, and, characters who have been arseholes and scoundrels get their comeuppance, and the good characters get their, happy ending. And it really cleverly reflects the story beats, and it's just so well told. On the top of that, you've got a brilliant visual style with all the colours and lights and the costumes. We've got, Connie dressed as Amy Winehouse, or Dwayne as Michael Jackson, and Reese is in a sumo suit, which is apparently meant to be Gangnam Style. And then you've got Janet, who is dressed as Boy George from Culture Club. It just gives it so much life and personality, and it just makes it a joy to watch. Speaking of the characters, all of them are so fun to watch. You've got a variety of characters. Some highlights, Connie, played by Tamsin Outwaith, who is the proper, bitch queen, but she is really funny, and it is really satisfying to see her get her comeuppance at the end. It's just brilliant. Then you've got Roger, played by Pemberton, who is just hilarious, and it's funny seeing him doing a Brummy accent for a change. But the highlight for me is Emily Howlett playing Janet, who is a deaf character played by a real-life deaf actress, and her suggestions about the episode and what to do with her character, like putting her hand on the speaker, or turning her hearing aid down, how deaf people enjoy music. And it breaks that stigma that, deaf people can enjoy music, and it's just some of the best disability representation that I think I've seen. And she's just a brilliant actress, very physical, expression, great expression there, and she's just fantastic and the real highlight of this episode. And overall, I just love this episode. It is a comfort one for me, and a surprise. This might be a surprise, but I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. Episode 5 now, Diddle Diddle Dumpling, which has got to be one of the strangest episodes of the entire show. I mean, the number 9 in this episode is literally a shoe, UK size 9. It's a really bizarre episode on first watch, definitely, but honestly, if you felt like that, because I used to say this is probably my least favourite of the season, it's not now, because rewatch this episode and you will gain so much more appreciation for it, because it is so fascinating, but so good. So the main premise of this one is that Reese's character, David, finds just a single shoe on one morning when he's running. He just finds a shoe, just there. It's all perfect. Why is that there? It's such an odd idea, but it's quite inventive, and it's probably the most inventive use of the number 9 that I think the show's ever done. But yeah, really great, really great mystery established, like why is this shoe just on its own? And he kind of becomes obsessed over this shoe over the course of the episode, and it's like wanting to get it back to the other shoe. He believes that, they should be in pairs, they should be together. And it's just quite a bizarre concept, but it's done quite well. Now, I do have to kind of break the twist to explain why I love this episode so much. So basically, Reese's character David is the husband of Louise, who played by Keely Halls, who's fantastic in this episode, and has a daughter, Sally, who's also really good as well for a child actor, great. But the twist is that they had twins, and the son died years ago, and David never got over that, and the single shoe is there to represent the single child, not without its twin, one shoe without the other shoe, one child without their sibling, and it's like that they should be together, and it's meant to be a metaphor of, the stages of grief, so like denial, why is there just one shoe here, anger when he's lashing out at Louise, bargaining when he's trying to get the shoe back to its owner through like radio shows and whatnot, etc. It's just a really clever way of portraying grief and depression, But there are other ways that you can read it. You know, on initial viewing, I think I definitely read it as sort of a comment on unhealthy obsessions and, you know, not realising that the twist was about kind of depression and that kind of stuff. But there are multiple ways that you can read it, and that's always the sign of a great story, when, you know, it has its intention, it has its deeper meaning, but there's other ways that a viewer can, you know, read it and interpret it, and that's always great to do. Coming back to the visual style of this series yet again, you know, this probably for me the best directed episode of number 9 in terms of, you know, the direction, not necessarily the visuals, but, you know, the sterile white walls of the house and the symmetrical shots and cinematography really make you feel like it's a Stanley Kubrick or Wes Anderson project. But you know, the symmetrical cinematography, you know, shows objects and props in pairs, like cups on the table and whatnot, and you know, various things, showing them in pairs to reflect the whole story of with the shoe, and you know, they should be. It's just really cleverly done, and it's just, you can pick out so many different details. Like, I can't go through them all now, but it's so well done and so meticulously crafted. We have Reese in the story giving one of his best performances ever given in the show, top 3 easily. Just the range of emotion that he can portray through this, you know, through this character. It's something else, portraying the grief of this character. It is fantastic. So, near the end of the story, the shoe is returned to its owner, played by Matthew Bainton, I think it is. But it's returned to his owner, and it seems like everything's back to normal, like he's accepted what's happened. And in the final scene, it's revealed what it all means, you know, that it is, you know, his son had died, and he still hasn't got over it, and he's gone and killed Matthew Bainton's character to get the shoe back. You know, he thinks they should be in pairs and whatnot, and there's like police cars and there's blood on his hands and whatnot, and it is just a really real gut punch of an ending. And then in the credits, you see like CCTV footage of showing that Reese's was the one who put the shoe there in the first place, you know, when he found it initially at the start. That's quite clever and quite inventive of getting information across the audience. It's really clever, and it just overall, the theme of grief that's explored and how it can consume people so much that if it's not helped, if people who are going through grief, if it's not helped properly, then it can end up, they can end up resorting to, you know, murder because of how wrapped up in the grief they are. It is great. It is still a quite odd episode, and I wouldn't give it a 10, but I'd give it a 9.5 because it is damn close. And now, the finale of this season, and a bit of a favourite of mine, Private View, the pure horror episode, which this one takes influence from the giallo subgenre, which was common in like these sort of 70s. They're like European horror films with a lot of gore and a murder mystery kind of angle. Usually the killer ends up being a woman, and it's out of like revenge motives, that kind of thing. And that's what it's paying homage to, and I think it does it really bloody well. I need to watch Suspiria though, because that's a popular giallo film. The premise of this one is it's set at a number 9 gallery. It's an art gallery based on a person who had died, Elliot Quinn, and it's kind of in memory of him. It's like his gallery of like his life, that kind of thing. And all these characters, all these really unrelated characters are brought together. You've got such a wide variety of characters, and it initially doesn't make sense of why they're all here. It's really odd, but the characters themselves are really fun and got a lot of life. I really like Reese's kind of sort of smart-ass, straight man, kind of art critic kind of character. Steve Pemberton, as his character is literally called Kenneth Williams. The joke about his character's name is never not going to be funny to me. You also have Fiona Shaw in the episode, which she's really funny in it, although we get to her later. And Peter Kay's in it as well at the beginning. He does get killed off, but I will never complain about Peter Kay on any TV screen. He is a national treasure. But yeah, I love all the characters in the episode. They're just so funny and just like got very distinct personalities. They're just really fun. They're dynamic. It's just really great. Also, the visual style of the episode, the mannequins and the weird abstract art that they find with the big head and all that kind of stuff, and the red lighting it's bathed in, it is visually gorgeous. It's so striking, and I love it. As it pays homage to the giallo genre, you're gonna have some gore in there, and man, the gore, I love gore, so I'm gonna love this episode, and it's great. You know, the opening kill with Peter Kay being he gets like impaled with the chair. That's a great kill. When I can't remember her name, but when she drinks champagne, the blonde woman, and she like her mouth like burns her. That's really grim. man, there are some great kills and great gore here. And then it's revealed that Fiona Shaw's character is the killer all along. Like, goes from this, like, borderline offensive Irish stereotype to absolutely insane, murderer. And it is revealed fairly early on. It's not like a last-minute twist thing. But I like how much time is dedicated to her explaining her motive to Reese's character in particular. And, like, how much, I think it's nicely timed, I think. And there is some dramatic irony of, what's coming, but the characters don't at the time. So I like that angle. But the motivation of why she's killing everyone is really good. So her character is the mother of Elliot Quinn, who this museum and art gallery is based around. And he had died, but he donated his organs to people because he had healthy organs, and he donated them to people who didn't. So these people got them, but they've abused them because they've had unhealthy lifestyles, like eating too much, smoking, alcohol all the time, that kind of stuff. And so you can understand why she's killing people. I mean, obviously not killing people, but you can understand why she's angry and wants revenge because, her son had died, he donated his organs, but these people have just abused them, these gifts. And you can kind of see where that's coming from. And even though it does get a bit far-fetched when she calls Reese a heartless critic, and that's why she wants his transplanted heart back, you can kind of see it because of how deranged she's become. And I think it's kind of cool commentary on the health and unhealthy lifestyles and whatnot, considering two of the characters, Peter Kay's character and Steve Pemberton's character, are both health workers. The kind of irony in that regard, and just I think it's quite cool commentary on how make sure you live a good healthy lifestyle. Not saying that Fiona Shaw is going to come and steal your organs, but it is kind of good commentary and a good theme underlying the episode. What knocks this down a bit for me is the final scene. It's exactly like what the Bill does. It cuts to black and then tacks on a final ending twist that, one, isn't executed properly and it just baffles me, and two, is just unneeded. In this episode, so Reese has been tied to the chair, Fiona Shaw's going to kill him, but somehow he's escaped and he's passing the work off as his own. How has he escaped? That just doesn't make any sense, and it's just unneeded. And the twist with Fiona Shaw's character and why she's doing it, that's really great, rich character stuff on its own. You don't need the extra bit. So overall, I will give this episode a 9 out of 10. The ending does ruin it a little bit, but still, I love this one. It's really enjoyable. And that's my Series 3 review. I'm not going to keep you guys too long because this video is really long, but here's my little ranking at the end. Devil Christmas at the top, The Bill at the bottom, but overall, consistently fantastic episodes, great storytelling, real inventiveness, really great themes explored, great presentation. It's just the whole package. It's where number 9 peaked for me, and it's why I come to this show. So, hope you enjoyed it. Like, subscribe, comment your thoughts in the comments below. This is Clack of the Geek, signing out. Goodbye, everyone.